Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Later today, President Trump and Senator McCormick are expected to announce a $90 billion private sector surge, touting Pennsylvania as the next powerhouse for energy and AI. President Trump says he struck a great trade deal with Indonesia, marking his fourth trade agreement announcement in 3 months. European allies say they're in favor of paying for Patriot missiles from the U.S. to send to Ukraine. President Trump announced the U.S. will sell the missile systems so Ukraine can defend itself against Russian attacks. Senators are holding the confirmation hearing for Mike Waltz, President Trump's pick to be the next ambassador to the United Nations. What Waltz says about China enjoying unwarranted advantages at the UN. Candidates to head the Federal Reserve are under consideration. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent tells Bloomberg a formal process is already underway. Severe flooding hits New Jersey. Authorities say 2 women were killed after their vehicle was swept away.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. President Donald Trump told the BBC that he's losing patience with Russian President Vladimir Putin. In a phone interview published today, the conversation was released just hours after he threatened Moscow with sanctions. Trump told the BBC he thought a Ukraine deal was on the cards with Russia 4 different times.
I'm not done with him, but I'm disappointed in him. So we had a deal done 4 times, and then you go home and you see he just attacked a nursing home or something in Kiev. I said, what the hell was that all about?
Do you trust him?
I trust almost nobody.
Trump also announced new weapons for Ukraine. The president told reporters yesterday that billions of dollars of American weapons will be sent to Ukraine via NATO. Trump added that NATO would pay for them. Trump told the BBC he believed Britain would fight to defend the U.S., but suggested he could not say the same for the European Union, a factor in his decision not to sign a trade deal with the bloc.
I believe that the UK would fight with us. There's something about it. It's just been so many years, and I really think the relationship is just a really great one. I think that they would be with us. I'm not sure that a lot of the other countries would be, which is unfair because we pay far more than anybody else. There's this special relationship we have. Well, look, that's why I made a deal with them, and I haven't made a deal. I mean, I've made some other deals, but for the most part, in terms of your competitors and in terms of the European Union, I haven't made a deal. But no, the UK is very special, and it's been there for a long time. Yeah, they have been a really true ally.
Trump said this was a factor in his willingness to grant Britain some exemptions from his tariff program. Since returning to the White House, Trump has sought to broker an end to the Russia-Ukraine war, but recent days have seen Russia using hundreds of drones to attack Ukrainian cities. Putin has yet to accept a proposal from Trump for an unconditional ceasefire. Kyiv has agreed to a potential pause. Some European allies say they agree to pay for Patriot missiles for Ukraine. Yesterday, President Trump announced the U.S. will start selling the weapons so Ukraine can defend itself against Russia. NTD's Arian Pazdar has more.
We're looking into that, and we're looking into that with a positive inclination.
The Dutch foreign minister suggests the Netherlands support President Trump's plan to send Patriot missiles to Ukraine via NATO. According to Trump, European allies will pay for the American weapons and then send them to Ukraine. The Danish foreign minister says Denmark is ready to finance the Patriot missiles.
We are absolutely ready to do so. It will be, money. And we have to work out the details. It could be the Ukrainian buying it themselves, and then we have to, support Ukraine, or it could be directly payment to U.S.
Germany's defense minister, meanwhile, says he recently spoke with Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth about the same topic. He says Berlin has already been thinking about buying U.S. Patriot missiles for Ukraine.
Germany could buy 2 Patriot systems from the Americans and deliver them directly to Ukraine.
President Trump also set a 50-day deadline for Russia to strike a peace deal in the Ukraine war. Otherwise, any country doing business with Russia will face 100% tariffs. NATO chief Mark Rutte was on Fox News on Tuesday, saying he approves of the plan.
This is significant. So today, if you are in Beijing or in Delhi or you're in Brazil and you know that this is coming to you, you might want to call Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin and say, hey friend, we are still buying stuff from you, but you have got to get serious when it comes to these negotiations on a ceasefire or a peace deal, or otherwise we get hit.
Rutte added that such secondary sanctions would also have a serious economic impact on Russia itself, not just on countries doing business with Russia. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
The Kremlin says President Trump's announcements on arms and sanctions are, quote, very serious. Asked about Trump's recent statements, a Kremlin spokesperson said, quote, the U.S. president's statements are very serious. Some of them are addressed personally to President Putin. He added, quote, we certainly need time to analyze what was said in Washington. Russia's foreign minister also weighed in. He said the country wants to understand what motivated Trump's statement that Russia must agree to a peace deal within 50 days. President Trump says the United States has struck a trade deal with Indonesia. This marks Trump's fourth trade agreement announcement in 3 months. Trump took to Truth Social to announce the agreement. The president posted, quote, great deal for everybody, just made with Indonesia. I dealt directly with their highly respected president. Details to follow. Trump had threatened the Southeast Asian country with a 32% tariff rate effective August 1st. Indonesia's main exports to the U.S. are consumer electronics, apparel, and footwear. Official data shows that the U.S. goods trade deficit with Indonesia was some $18 billion in 2024, up 5.4% from the previous year. Similar to his other letters, Trump said Indonesia would not be subject to levies if the country or its companies built or manufactured products in the U.S. Since launching his tariff policy, Trump has reached trade agreements with China, the United Kingdom, and Vietnam. The European Commission is targeting $84 billion worth of U.S. goods, from Boeing aircraft to bourbon to cars. That's if trade talks with Washington fail. The EU's trade commissioner said the bloc wouldn't employ countermeasures before August 1st.
I can confirm that Commissioner Šefčovič had a call with the US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick yesterday evening. I can't provide any details on that. I can confirm that Commissioner Šefčovič will have a call with the United States Trade Representative Jemison Greer this early evening. I can confirm that technical teams from the European Commission are on their way to Washington, D.C. as we speak.
President Trump is threatening a 30% tariff on imports from the EU starting August 1st. European officials say the figure is unacceptable and would end normal trade between two of the world's largest markets. Trump has warned Brussels against retaliation. The president says any new European tariffs will be added to the 30% rate. Nvidia is set to resume selling its H20 AI computer chips to China. The company says it won approval from the Trump administration. That comes after boss Jensen Huang met with President Trump. Here's more.
Nvidia's AI chips have been a key focus of US export controls over concern they could be used by China's military. The firm has said the curbs could cut its sales by $15 billion. Now Huang is expected to hold a media briefing in Beijing on Wednesday, where he's attending a trade expo. His visit will be closely watched by the US, where two lawmakers have asked him not to meet companies linked to defense or intelligence applications. On Tuesday, he told state media in the country that it was crucial for American companies to establish roots in China. Nvidia faces growing competition from Chinese tech rivals, including Huawei. But firms in the country remain hungry for its AI chips. Now the US giant says it will develop a new model for the Chinese market, ensuring it is fully compliant with all US export controls. The move to resume sales comes after Washington and Beijing agreed a provisional trade truce. However, it's unclear how long that will last, with China facing an August 12th deadline to reach a durable deal with the White House.
Today, President Trump is expected to unveil $90 billion in artificial intelligence and energy investments. Global investors and leaders in energy and AI will meet in Pittsburgh for an energy and innovation summit. Senator Dave McCormick is hosting the event. He says Pennsylvania is uniquely positioned to become a base for energy-intensive data centers that power the AI industry. And President Trump took questions from the media before he left for the summit. Here he is and what he said.
Why are you giving Mr. Putin 50 additional days to prosecute his war against you?
Oh, I don't think 50 days is very long, and it could be sooner than that. I don't know. So we made a deal with Indonesia. They are going to pay 19%, and we are going to pay nothing. I think it's a good deal for both parties, but we will have full access into Indonesia. And we have a couple of those deals that are going to be announced. India basically is working along that same line. We're going to have access into India. Now, Indonesia has some great product, and they also have some very valuable earths and various other materials. One of the things, as you know, they're known for is very high-quality copper, which we'll be using. We're going to be meeting with the British Prime Minister, very respected, and we are going to have a meeting with him probably in Aberdeen, and we're going to do a lot of different things, and we're going to also refine the trade deal that we've made.
Google has just signed the world's largest corporate clean power pact for hydroelectricity. It's a $3 billion deal with Brookfield Asset Management, and it's for electricity generated by 2 hydropower facilities in Pennsylvania. Google also plans to invest $25 billion in data centers across the state and region. The move comes as the tech industry hunts for clean energy to power data centers for artificial intelligence and cloud computing, which has driven power consumption to record highs. Immigration and Customs Enforcement conducted a large-scale operation at 2 California cannabis farms. The enforcement action ended with hundreds taken into custody amid reports of ICE agents being fired upon. DHS Secretary Kristi Noem said on X, quote, "This is quickly becoming one of the largest operations since President Trump took office." Meanwhile, President Trump is set to visit Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, where he is expected to announce $70 billion worth of investment in AI and energy for the state. Joining us now to discuss is Mike Leon, Director of Strategy, Free and Equal Elections Foundation, and host of Can We Please Talk podcast, and Tony Kinnett, National Correspondent, The Daily Signal, and host of Tony Kinnett Cast, radio show and podcast. So good afternoon to you. Good to see you both. Starting with you, Mike, today. Give us your thoughts on the contrasting narratives. DHS claiming child rescue and forced labor versus critics alleging abuse of farm workers and overreach.
Well, first off, good to see you both. Would thoroughly enjoy this afternoon, Tuesday at 2 p.m. spot. So, Don, I love the way you just asked this question, because this is a 2 wrongs don't make a right thing. So let me start with the high level part of this, right? With California's legal marijuana industry and $5 billion or so that industry brings in, right? These 2 farms in Camarillo out there in California, 361 folks were arrested, right, in these raids. 4 of them had been prior convicted of crimes. That's 0.011%. 4 of them have been prior convicted of crimes, right? But when you drill a little bit more into the numbers in that arrest, 14 of them were minors, right? Now, California obviously has where if you're, within the age of 12 to 16, you can work after school hours on a farm. If you're between 16 up until about 18, you can obviously work as well. If you don't go to school, you have to prove that you don't have to be in school. But no one under the age of 21 is supposed to be working at a cannabis farm. So this is kind of one of these things where it's like these 2 wrongs don't make a right. Like if the farm was actually having workers there that are underage and all of these day workers that are illegal now, according to the new administration, right? It's been since January. We've been 6 months into this administration. You've known about the policy changes of this administration. You know now that undocumented is not a civil offense anymore. It's a criminal offense. So if this farm had all of these workers that were working there, forget about the wages for a second and what they make and things like that, and the child labor stuff just for a second. If you knew that all of these folks were undocumented and are now considered illegal according to the new laws of the United States of America, that isn't coming upon you to fix that and ratify that. And so this is, again, 2 wrongs don't make a right. It's part of the larger narrative of 2025 and social media postings of all of these ICE raids and things like that. But it doesn't change the fact that all these folks were potentially there illegal And there were some minors that were working at the farm as well, when the farm had said there wasn't any minors that were working there. So again, two wrongs do not make a right, Don.
And Tony, same question to you. And is there enough evidence to confirm forced child labor, trafficking, or exploitation?
I don't see any evidence right now of forced child labor and trafficking in this particular situation. Those are heavy allegations. I like to see the evidence on the plate in front of me before I make one like that. But I would like to say one thing, and I think this is something that Mike will agree with me on for sure. Regarding the packing plant in Omaha, regarding the cannabis farm in California, and I don't really see any reason to treat this farm specially because it's a cannabis farm. Again, whether it's making hemp for blunts or for making rope, it doesn't really matter to me in this situation. It's a farm that's not part of the food chain, as one side of the aisle has been saying narratively. The other side, I think, is dunking on it because it's a pot farm, and so that's easy for conservatives to dunk on. Realistically, though, who's operating these farms? Who's operating these packing plants? Who has been taking advantage of undocumented illegal immigrant labor, who have either, A, as we saw in the Nebraska packing plant, they were falsifying E-Verify documents. That is a felony. You can't do that. I can't give someone a fake social security number. That's not allowed. Someone who comes into this country and didn't do so properly, who doesn't have the right TIN, who gives fake E-Verify documents to try to sneak through the system. I want to know, does this individual who owns these cannabis farms, who was a donor to Gavin Newsom, did he know these were illegal immigrants? Did he know these were people who went through the process legally or illegally? That's what I'm more concerned about. I want to cut off the incentive at the source. I want individuals who work in this country to be paid a fair and living wage based on terms they agreed upon, not underselling to sneak around the law. That's not fair to Americans. That's not fair to legal immigrants who came here to work properly. And again, if there are individuals offering these kind of opportunities, we're currently in the middle of an investigation on construction companies hiring illegal immigrants to skirt a lot of standards. I think that what we're looking for in the next couple of weeks is some actual indictments and prosecutions to those who are participating in the exploitation.
So, Mike, you said earlier, two wrongs don't make a right. There's another aspect to this. Your thoughts on reports of ICE agents being fired upon, and the fact that DHS Assistant Secretary says sanctuary politicians are demonizing ICE and CBP potentially, contributing to that.
Yeah, well, first off, violence against police officers, I think we're all on the same page on this, is wrong, right? Peacefully protesting, potentially skirting that line of impeding, as we saw in these farm videos, and we saw some folks that were arrested that were part of that 361 number that I mentioned that don't even work at the farm. They're relatives of some of the workers. So again, you get into that gray area, right? But when you start actually trying to harm some of these officers, you're in the wrong. You're in the wrong when you start to do that. But, back to what you just asked, Don, about the second part of this is with respect to politicians and demonizing ICE. Again, folks, I don't know how many times I have to say this when I come on this program, right? Elections have consequences. When, again, I was at the RNC, the signs did not have an asterisk on them. They said mass deportations. The policy wasn't flushed out, but here we are, and the policy is now flushed out. There has been a change with respect to immigration enforcement in this country. You are now 6 months now. You've seen all the stories. Anybody who's out there right now that is in this country right now, if you're undocumented or you're illegal and you're listening to me right now, you happen to be watching NTD News, thanks for watching. Do me a favor, visit an immigration attorney ASAP and know that you could potentially be sent out of this country. Also, for these local leaders with respect to R&D, these are laws that are on the books. These are why elections have consequences. These are things that the administration, this has nothing to do with whether or not I voted for Donald Trump. This has to do with now the level of frustration I have with people saying, this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I asked for. No, this is exactly what you signed up for. This is exactly what you asked for, because they're enforcing the laws according to the books and according to what the executive branch of the United States government, there's three branches. The executive branch is wanting to carry out this policy. It's a change. Before, it was civil. Now it's criminal. And if you are an employer in one of the largest states, back to Tony's point, and you knew that this administration was going to do that, and you knew you had time to comply with getting your workers documented in the proper documentation, and you didn't do that, Now you can't run to media, you can't run to politicians to look for that safe haven. I'm starting to get sick of it. If you can see it in my voice, and I know Tony's going to nod along with this, it's because these are all changes that we've all been accustomed to now. And unfortunately, as a media, we're covering these stories. Yeah, some of them are potentially incredibly callous. Some of them involve children of the parents that are being here. But this is what happens when elections have consequences. And now we know 6 months into this, what bears from this. So you have to comply with this stuff, or you risk, potentially going to a detention center or somebody dying like that was trying to evade law enforcement. It would have been better to be captured than actually losing your life over this. So that's what I would answer in terms of your questions, Don.
Okay, Tony, we saw you nodding. What are you thinking?
Well, I mean, again, this is why I love this segment, is because Mike is not only a very reasonable guy, but he also understands what's black and white on the table regarding the data, regarding the laws. These laws are on the books. They've been on the books for a while, despite several administrations on the left and right kind of playing softball as far as prosecutorial discretion is concerned and deciding they don't want to push forward with law. We just saw the Colorado district attorney in one region letting loose an individual who attempted a kidnapping of a child. There is a large problem on the left of individuals who believe that progressive politics allow them to use prosecutorial discretion not to enforce laws on the books. And by the way, the Trump administration is guilty of this too in regards to TikTok. Congress banned the Chinese spyware app TikTok. He hasn't enforced it. I can't stand that. And I don't have a policy prescription for enforce the laws on the books, but this is the case. Also, after 250 years of being a country, you're going to have quite the stack of federal laws that are on the books that are a large spaghetti bowl. So I understand the mess here. That said, regarding the illegal immigration situation, there is also an offer to self-deport. You can make money, you can leave the country, and that 10-year penalty on reapplying for citizenship does not apply to you, meaning that the only penalty there is for being caught and thrown out of the country for violating immigration law, because not only is it, as Mike alluded to, the civil problem of coming in the wrong way or not filing for migrant status properly or something along those lines, but individuals who do try to, over 5-10 years, evade law enforcement, evade immigration officials, I say take the money, get in the back of line, go through the immigration process the proper way, and then you can join the legal immigrants of this country who are, by the polling data, the most ardent supporters of the current immigration policies. It's like 65-70%, at least according to the latest Ipsos poll.
Okay, Mike, on the topic itself that we're talking about today, some arrested individuals had serious criminal records, while some did not. What is your opinion on whether should public policy treat illegal immigrant workers with no violent history? Should they be treated differently from those that don't?
Well, again, according to the new law, they shouldn't be. And again, these are not my words, Don. Caroline Levitt back in March, and during the time when Caroline Levitt said this from the White House press briefing room, we had a very popular immigration attorney who has a couple of high-profile cases on the books right now. And I said, you just heard what Caroline Levitt said there, because they asked a specific question. I believe it was a CBS News correspondent that was asking how many of so far that have been captured by ICE had actual criminal history. And she said they're all criminals because they're here illegally, right? According to the new law. Now, Don, again, do you, me and Tony, do we feel that there is some callousness to some of the, yeah, I'm sure there's human empathy and compassion in some of these stories. I'm sure there is. And I just mentioned statistically before, 361 arrested, only 4 actually had criminal backgrounds. And that included a rape. I forget the other crime that was included in that. So can ICE discern that right now and do all of that with respect to being thrown things at them and trying to do all of this law enforcement work while they're trying to do and carry out the policies of the administration? They can't be expected to do all of that. So I do think that the president, yeah, I do think the president has business leaders in the agriculture sector and the construction sector have all pointed out to the president, like, there has to be a way to do this humane wise while not killing my workforce. But again, back to what we've been talking about. If you have workforce that's not legally having the documentation necessary to work here, then you're gonna get raided. And these are the things that are going to happen. So I don't know, Don, I'm kind of at my wit's end here with all of this, because it's like we keep going around in circles with all of this, but it's like the high level part of this is like the administration has changed this. This is the policy now. So they can't discern. Go ahead, Tony.
So sorry, I don't mean to jump in. Just to build off of that, I think that there is an answer so that we're not going around in circles, because these aren't new laws. It's simply bringing forward the law through full prosecutorial discretion, at least according to what's on the books and federal statutes. The issue is that in a lot of cases, you have sanctuary states who do know where there are illegal immigrants who are working in various processes, or perhaps they're working with an immigration official, immigration attorney, they're going through the asylum process, and they are in areas that there might be other illegal immigrants who do have violent criminal records and history. And ICE has asked, the Department of Homeland Security has asked, if you work in a state where you have these databases, these records, please share them with us so that we don't, when we do come to arrest the individuals who are committing rape or who are have a violent criminal history, domestic abuse is one that pops up quite frequently in these, or you're looking at the illegal business practices, right? Taking advantages of workers for cheap labor to skirt the laws, that it's not targeting just an open area. But when Gavin Newsom has forbade local law enforcement with working with federal law enforcement officials, when Karen Bass of Los Angeles has forbade, when J.B. Pritzker has forbade, when Massachusetts legislators have forbade, now you have a situation where ICE still has to uphold federal law. There are still violent criminals in these areas, but now they don't get the kind of intel and the resources that are necessary. And unfortunately, a lot of this is political stunting. It's not necessarily done to protect the dignity and compassion. They run certain aspects of those, but it's very hard for me to take Karen Bass seriously about her empathy and compassion for individuals who are just there to work and live, when she hasn't even signed off on the permits to rebuild huge parts of the Palisades in Los Angeles, and that she allowed her own police officers in the LA Sheriff's Office to be followed around by these groups, threatening them, throwing concrete at their heads. As you pointed out, yep, that's attempted murder. And it creates a system that is not going to make it easier for federal authorities to discern. And by the way, I do think that for people who are coming here, they've came here illegally, but all they have done is made a life here, they've worked. I'm for lessening the amount of time or of a penalty for some kind of an immigration patriotization process. But we have to actually get the cooperation of states and the federal government to make that happen. Otherwise, you can't, there's an old expression that you can't pan through a tsunami, meaning that you can't pan gold out of a rushing, roaring amount of water. Right now, we need state and federal cooperation so that we can sift through this a little more specifically.
Okay, Tony, but let me ask you one thing. Upholding federal law is one thing, but is it overreach in this situation at least, or using excessive force to have armored military vehicles, tear gas, and crowd control weapons at an agricultural work site, Tony?
So I'll make this answer quick because I don't want to double stack here against Mike and his time. But the short answer is I don't think the premise is quite accurate on that. They didn't show up to the farm to tear gas the workers. The tear gas didn't drop until individuals started throwing rocks at the police, which is attempted murder. So it's not as though they're dropping into the area, dropping some tear gas and some CN right out of the helicopters or throwing in the Humvees. Given the threats to law enforcement, a 700% increase. Given the domestic terror threats, there is currently Benjamin Song, an Antifa terror cell leader who is on the run after leading a terror cell of 10 individuals, 12 individuals maybe now, that were going to assault ICE officers and kill them outside of Alvarado, Texas. The threats are there. I don't think it's overkill to go in secure. And like some of the footage shows, there's individuals there that are very large bodied with the pink hair, stabbing a Mexican flag into the spokes of a Humvee or attempting to, and there, right at that photo, actually really good B-roll team. That kind of stuff isn't just general protests. That's when you get into the riot territory, which I think Mike has delineated rather well.
Okay, Mike, I also want to move on to Trump's visit to Pittsburgh. So give us your thoughts on that situation, your overall feeling of this event. You know, we have both Republicans and Democrats like Trump and Governor Shapiro sharing a stage at this summit. Just your overall thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, this has been a big week for the president. You have to give credit where credit's due. I think this is something where Democrats struggle to do this, right? Like first, the president coming around, realizing that Vladimir Putin is a former KGB officer, and he's like, maybe I should help Ukraine, who got invaded. Now he's doing this where he's meeting with business leaders here in Pennsylvania, and Amazon has announced this sign-on and the infrastructure and the amount of money that's going to pour into Pennsylvania. You know, Pennsylvania is the second largest net supplier of energy behind Texas, according to the Energy Information Administration. So, like, to have this in the state, look, there's a reason why Pennsylvania is such a big swing state. It can go in a bunch of different directions, obviously politically, as we saw throughout 2016, 2020, and 2024. And for him to do this announcement in Pennsylvania, again, on the anniversary of what happened, unfortunately, last year, I think this is the big victory for the president. And we're going to see some folks that are going to be there in attendance today. And again, no matter if you have an R or a D next to your name or even an I in terms of independent, I think this is a big victory for those in the Commonwealth.
Okay, we do have to wrap up soon, but Tony, I started with Mike, so I'll end with you. How are you looking at the apparent bipartisan support at this summit?
I can't believe I'm saying this. I'm a little bit skeptical of only one thing. The power draw, I'm excited to see the hydroelectricity through the Google project, but I come from a small town in Indiana where these large AI data centers, they draw a lot of power and they cause kind of a lot of corporate bloat on the landscape. I just want it to be done responsibly, and I think that nuclear power, safe, effective, and scalable, should be a contingent of AI and data center development. I want to make sure this is long-lasting abundance with a limited impact on the environment. I'm all for it otherwise.
All right, Tony, Mike, again, thank you for coming on this week.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Coming up, heavy rain hit the Northeast last night, drenching parts of New York and New Jersey. Authorities say 2 women were killed after their vehicle was swept away. We have that and more after the break.
All throughout your home, appliances and systems just wait for the worst time to break down and leave you with expensive repairs. Unless you have a plan from Choice Home Warranty.
All home appliances and systems have a breakdown clock, and when it expires, it will cost hundreds and potentially even thousands of dollars to fix or replace. That's why every homeowner should have a plan with Choice Home Warranty, like I do. For a low monthly fee, a Choice Home Warranty plan will cover your heating, air conditioning, plumbing, appliances, and more. Don't let an unexpected repair wreck your budget. With Choice Home Warranty, that covered repair is fixed or replaced for you.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without him.
Avoid the ticking clock of home appliances and systems breaking down with a plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get your first month free. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage. That's $200 in total savings.
With a nationwide network of over 25,000 technicians, I don't worry about how my next breakdown will be handled. With a click of a button, my claim is filed, and Choice Home Warranty starts the clock. They do the legwork, hiring the right technician and handling the cost of covered repairs and replacements. And check this out. For a limited time, you can get 1 month of coverage free. Did you hear me? Free. You can't beat that deal with a sledgehammer. But hurry, this offer is ticking away. Once the clock hits 0, poof, it's gone.
Don't fear the breakdown clock. Get a plan from Choice Home Warranty and get round-the-clock money-saving protection you can count on. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage, plus get your first month free. This offer won't last long.
Get your home protected. Call now.
Don't wait for an appliance or system to break down. Call before that happens. Call 800-983-3523. 800-983-3523.
Divinely inspired traditional oil painting inspires compassion. Artwork created in truth and beauty illuminates a path to goodness. Rediscover traditional art, revive classical culture. We warmly invite oil painters from around the world to participate in the 7th NTD International Figure Painting Competition, a celebration of classical realism. Please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
Hey, have you heard what's happening at Mathis Home? Get new lower prices all summer long with price drop alerts all over the store. They have all the latest looks at unbeatable prices. Like this big sofa with curved arms and 5 plush throw pillows. They dropped the price to just $5.99. That's an incredible value. And with their huge selection, you're sure to find the style that's just right for you. In stock with fast, free delivery. Look for price drop alert tags and save now at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Heavy rain hit the Northeast last night, drenching parts of New York and New Jersey. Emergency declarations were issued as flash flooding stranded vehicles and closed subway lines. Here's a closer look.
Across the East Coast, flash flood warnings were in effect Monday as slow-moving storms dumped huge amounts of rain. Rainfall rates pushed infrastructure to its limit and came down to setting records in cities like New York. The last time the city got rain like this in such a short amount of time was after Hurricane Ida in 2021. Floodwaters burst into the subway system, stranding commuters and halting trains. Flooding shut down major thoroughfares including the Sawmill River Parkway and the Cross Bronx Expressway. Staten Island was drenched with up to 6 inches of rain, prompting a flood warning late Monday. Emergency crews in Westchester County, New York were deployed to rescue people stranded in flooded vehicles. Parts of major highways were shut down due to floodwaters. Air travel is also in chaos. FlightAware reports more than 10,000 flights were delayed nationwide Monday with over 2,500 cancellations. In New Jersey, Governor Phil Murphy declared a state of emergency as floodwaters left vehicles stranded and crews rushed to conduct water rescues. In Scotch Plains, New Jersey, buses were seen stranded in rising floodwaters as major roads became impassable. In Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, rescuers performed over a dozen rescues as some homes saw up to 5 feet of water. Despite the widespread damage, officials say the worst of the storm appears to be over. Forecasters said Monday the storms would move offshore Tuesday morning, but warned a new wave of rain could arrive later this week.
Floods in New Jersey have killed 2 women. Authorities say their vehicle was swept away as heavy rains fell overnight. Governor Phil Murphy said the deaths occurred in the northern New Jersey city of Plainfield. Some roads remained closed while dozens of flights were delayed or canceled at airports. According to FlightAware data, that included 159 total cancellations at Newark Liberty. Video captured on Monday evening showed a vehicle go up in flames after appearing to get stuck in floodwaters in North Plainfield. In one North Plainfield neighborhood, a house caught on fire and collapsed. Authorities said the family inside had evacuated and no injuries were reported. Residents and an employee spoke about Sunday's fire at an assisted living facility in Massachusetts that killed 9 people and injured at least 30. The fire trapped residents inside, including some who were hanging out windows screaming for help. Those who died ranged in age from 61 to 86. Authorities identified several people who lost their lives. The granddaughter of one of the victims told NBC Boston that her grandmother was the rock of the family. Speaking after the fire, Paul Ferrara, head cook at the Gabriel House Assisted Living Facility, was holding back his tears.
Sad. They become part of your family, you know? You joke with them, you laugh with them, because you don't just work here. You're out there, you're socializing with them, you know? Trying to make it easier for them, because a lot of them have mental issues, you know? So this is not easy for them. I guess it spread it fast, you know? The fire department did a great job, though. They did an excellent job. Because look at the building's still intact. I mean, how bad it was, you figured the building would be half gone.
I was awakened by my neighbor. She pounded on my door and said, "Lorraine, Lorraine." And then I laid in bed for 2 more minutes, and then I got up. When I opened the door, smoke just hit me. I'm still in shock, I think.
I don't have any of that trauma.
I lost my friends.
Massachusetts Governor Maura Healey described the residents as a vulnerable population, with many using wheelchairs and oxygen tanks. The facility's website promotes apartments for seniors who cannot afford high-end assisted living, as well as group adult foster care. Fall River Mayor Paul Coogan said they would do what they can to help the residents who are now looking for new homes. The facility's owner declined to comment yesterday, but officials said he was cooperating with what the fire chief called a very extensive investigation. A firefighters union said inadequate staffing hindered the response to the blaze and contributed to the death toll. The origin and cause of the fire are under investigation. The Bristol County District Attorney's Office said the cause does not appear to be suspicious. Americans' unpaid medical bills will remain on their credit reports after all. This after a federal judge last week annulled a Biden-era Consumer Financial Protection Bureau rule that would have removed medical debt. A Texas U.S. District Judge found that the rule exceeded the Bureau's authority under the Fair Credit Reporting Act. The CFPB rule would have removed nearly $50 billion in medical bills from credit reports of 15 million people. It would have boosted a person's credit score 20 points on average, according to the Bureau. The Consumer Data Industry Association, one of the plaintiffs in the case, applauded the court's action. The group said if the rule was left in place, lenders might not have an accurate picture with which to make lending decisions. However, the CFPB has found medical debt on credit reports is not a good predicator of a person's ability to pay their other loans. A federal appeals court says banning gun ownership for regular drug users is constitutional, but stopped short of upholding a conviction in one specific case. The Third Circuit Court ruled that such bans are rooted in long-standing public safety concerns, but has sent the case of a Pennsylvania man who smokes marijuana back to a lower court for further review. Eric Harris admitted to regularly smoking marijuana, but claimed otherwise when buying 3 handguns. According to court filings, he later lost one of the guns after getting drunk and high and reported it stolen, and the gun ended up in the hands of a felon. The court said more evidence is needed to determine whether Harris himself was dangerous enough to lose his Second Amendment rights. The Senate has confirmed the first judicial nominee of President Trump's second term. The Senate confirmed Whitney Hermandofer to the Sixth Circuit Court of Appeals in a 46-42 vote along party lines. He is aged 37 and is one of the youngest federal judges ever confirmed. She has clerked for Supreme Court Justices Alito, Barrett, and then Judge Kavanaugh. Republicans praised her qualifications, while Democrats criticized her limited experience and questioned her independence. Her confirmation ties Trump's total appointments so far with those of former President Biden at 235. Arizona is holding a special primary on July 15th. Voters will head to the polls to elect a new member of the House of Representatives from the state's 7th district. The winner will fill the seat of the late Congressman Raul Jagivala, who died this past March. The race marks the first congressional primary in a strongly Democratic district since the beginning of the 119th Congress. His daughter, Adelita, is running and has long been the Democratic frontrunner. Meanwhile, Deja Fox has surged in the polls over the recent weeks. The 25-year-old abortion activist has the backing of influential progressive figures, such as gun control activist David Hogg. Arizona's 7th district covers most of Tucson as well as parts of southwest Phoenix. The district also includes most of Arizona's stretch of the U.S. border with Mexico. Inflation in the U.S. is on the rise for the second consecutive month. The Bureau of Labor Statistics reports the annual inflation rate climbed to 2.7% in June, marking its largest increase in 5 months. The June reading aligned with expectations predicted by economists, and it provided little indication whether tariffs were triggering price pressures. The shelter index rose 0.2% in June, that measured the cost of housing. The Bureau of Labor Statistics noted that it was the primary factor in last month's increase. Still, on a 12-month basis, shelter inflation eased to 3.8%. In response to the latest data, President Trump again called on the Federal Reserve to cut interest rates. He wrote on Truth Social, quote, "Fed should cut rates by 3 points," adding $1 trillion a year would be saved. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent is looking at candidates to replace Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. Bessent told Bloomberg Television that a formal process is already underway. Powell's term as a member of the Fed's board doesn't end until January 2028, but his term as Fed chair ends in 2026. That means he could remain at the central bank for 2 years and participate in monetary policy making decisions. Powell has refused to answer questions on whether he will leave the Fed after his term chair ends. Bessent told Bloomberg, quote, "I think it would be very confusing for the market for a former Fed chair to stay on." Coming up, if conflict erupts over Taiwan, who stands with the U.S.? Washington is quietly pressing its allies. That and more after the break. In Canada, thousands has gathered at Queen's Park and marched through downtown Toronto to mark 26 years of peaceful protest against the persecution of Falun Gong in China. Stay with us.
Hi, I'm Ryan Blaney, a third-generation race car driver, and we dedicate a lot of our time to going as fast as possible. My grandpa Lou is the reason why my dad and I started racing, and I'm really proud to follow in his tracks. But when my grandpa was diagnosed with Alzheimer's, it was a very unexpected bump in the road for us. I've learned a lot on this journey with my grandpa Lou, and the memories of my grandpa will always be with me. And in our family, we're used to getting involved, and I encourage you to do the same, especially when it comes to caring for your loved ones. When I think about Alzheimer's and the impact it had on my family, I recognize that losing a race isn't such a bad day after all. It's important to notice if older family members are acting differently, experiencing problems with their memory, or having trouble with routine tasks. Talking about Alzheimer's can be really tough, but if you notice something, have a conversation with your loved one. Encourage them to see a doctor or offer to go with them. Early detection of Alzheimer's can give your family time to explore support services, make a plan for the future, and access available treatments. If you or your family are noticing changes, it could be Alzheimer's. Talk about seeing a doctor together.
I was a quarterback at Hardaway High School, college first-round draft pick. On and off the field, we were taught to not show any signs of weakness. During the football season, I would stop eating, but I didn't know I was depressed. I thought that something was wrong with me. For 20 plus years was physical. We didn't have any education behind what mental health was. I started to learn it starts here first. If this is together, I'll be better as a father, as a man, and as a husband. Put the importance on your mental health. I'm not scared to talk about it anymore. The first tool is therapy. The second one is positive self-talk. And then journaling, putting your thoughts on paper. We have to redefine what being a strong man is and heal, love your mind.
The Chinese Communist Party continues to tighten control over critical mineral supply chains. House lawmakers today are strategizing ways to break the chokehold. NTD's Melina Weisskopf has the latest.
Critical minerals are essential for powering technology of the future, especially when it comes to renewable energy products. But right now, the United States and the world sits at a serious disadvantage because the Chinese Communist Party has been dominating the industry. Right now, the Chinese Communist Party produces roughly 60% of the world's critical mineral supply and processes up to 90% of it. But when it comes to replacing the Chinese regime's dominance in this area, the U.S. can't do it alone.
We're never going to manufacture this stuff here, with all the environmental rules, or even if we try, it's going to be such a small amount. We're going to have to depend on allies to do that. And even if we can find the rare earth, we don't have the experience to manufacture it.
So we need a bold global strategy to secure resilient, diversified supply chains free from Chinese control. The current geopolitical landscape offers an opportune window to act.
But the sentiment of the current geopolitical environment being an opportune time for the U.S. to act on the critical mineral front is also something that I heard from Congressman Gary Palmer, who doesn't even sit on this committee. Instead, he sits on a different subcommittee where he said they're also laser focused on the issue.
Not a single major refinery for rare earth elements in the entire Western Hemisphere. There's only 9 in the world. 8 are in China, the other one's in Malaysia. That's where we're behind.
And he told me that we can expect to see House Republican leadership focused on the critical minerals in the weeks and months ahead. But even the Trump administration has made this a major national security issue. He signed an executive order back in March directed at trying to create more U.S. investment on the critical mineral front. But even on some level, Trump acknowledged that the U.S. can't do it alone when he tried to make the critical mineral deal with Ukraine, which was highlighted on the panel of lawmakers.
President Trump's pick for UN Ambassador Mike Waltz is in the hot seat today. He is testifying at his confirmation hearing before the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. In his opening statement, Waltz commented on China and its status as a developing nation at the UN. Here he is.
It's absurd that the world's second largest economy is treated as a developing nation in most UN agencies that gives China favorable status. China pursues its personnel or pushes its personnel into roles at all levels, including bodies that set international standards, aviation, telecommunications, IP. U.S. leadership is essential there. America must have a strong voice, and if confirmed, I'll work with Secretary Rubio to challenge this influence.
The confirmation hearing comes after Waltz was ousted as National Security Advisor in May. He mistakenly added the Atlantic editor-in-chief Jeffrey Goldberg to a private Signal chat. The group was used to discuss strikes on the Houthis in Yemen. Today's hearing provides senators an opportunity to ask Waltz more questions about the incident, which led to his dismissal. Reports say the Pentagon is pressing Japan to clarify its stance on defending Taiwan. Which U.S. allies might be next in line for Washington's attention? And where do they stand currently on China's growing threats? Here's more.
We start with Japan, one of the U.S.'s closest allies in Asia. In response to Pentagon calls for clarity, Japan's defense minister echoed similar comments to Australia's. He said Tokyo will provide its legally grounded response only if a conflict actually breaks out. Despite diplomatic uncertainty, Taiwan's security remains critical to Japan. Both lie along the so-called First Island chain. This concept is viewed as a strategic barrier, key to containing China's military expansion and limiting its access to the Pacific Ocean. The chain also controls vital sea lanes crucial to Japan's trade and energy supply. At the same time, the U.S. alliance is ramping up readiness in the Indo-Pacific. Last Friday, top military leaders from the U.S., Japan, and South Korea met in Seoul, reaffirming their commitment to deter threats from China and North Korea. Japan and South Korea together host nearly half of all U.S. troops stationed overseas. Another key U.S. ally is the Philippines. The U.S. and the Philippines are bound by a treaty to defend each other in the event of war. The Philippines frequently faces tensions with Beijing over territorial disputes. Those tensions escalated after the U.S. deployed its Typhoon mid-range missile system to northern Philippines last April. The system, equipped with Tomahawk missiles, has a range of about 1,000 miles, putting much of China's southeastern coast within range. Tomorrow, we'll check in on some of the U.S.'s biggest allies in Europe and see how they might respond if tensions over Taiwan spark conflict between the U.S. and China.
In Canada, thousands gathered at Queen's Park in Toronto on July 13th, marking 26 years since the Chinese Communist Party launched its persecution of Falun Gong in China, also known as Falun Dafa. It's a peaceful spiritual practice rooted in the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. Here's the story.
Today, we remember those lives that were lost. We honor those still detained. And we call on everyone to open your minds and think critically. Falun Gong is not a threat. The Communist Party has always been the threat.
On July 20, 1999, the head of the Chinese Communist Party launched a nationwide campaign to suppress Falun Gong.
I was unlawfully arrested, forced into brainwashing and slave labor. The physical and mental pressure was enormous, all because I chose to be an honest and kind person. I call on the Chinese Communist Party to stop its brutal persecution of Falun Gong practitioners across China and around the world. We deserve justice.
Practitioners shared how Falun Dafa has improved their physical health and uplifted their spirit.
Before I practice, I suffer a lot from depression, and when I started practicing, it really took care of that, and after all these years now, I've had no issues with it, so it's a clear change for me, my personal health, but also a lot in terms of relations with other people, having a better relationship, whether it's at work, family relationship with my spouse, and even with my kids.
Being always truthful, having a mind of forbearance and compassion is really helping us on dealing with daily what we do on our work, what we interact with other people, what we do with neighbors, with everyone around.
In the afternoon, the parade made its way through major streets in downtown Toronto, drawing attention and support from onlookers who stopped to take photos and show encouragement.
People should have freedom of religion. I think that's very, very important. Stealing body parts, no, it's not right. No, people, how could you do that? That's crazy.
This protest is going good, and we are with this protest here. Hopefully they will put some attention over there and they will rescue them.
NTD News, Canada.
More than 1,000 people gather at the nation's capital to call for an end to a deadly persecution of faith targeting millions. 2025 marks the 26th year of the Chinese Communist Party's persecution of Falun Gong, also known as Falun Dafa, a spiritual discipline emphasizing the principles of truthfulness, compassion, and tolerance. Alongside human rights champions and many others, Falun Gong practitioners will hold a rally and parade, calling for an end to the regime's campaign against their freedom of belief. NTD's Fiona G. and Carrie Dunst will bring you live coverage starting at 12 p.m. Eastern this Thursday, only on NTD. The centuries-old tradition of swan upping got underway this week. That's a census of the royal swan population along the River Thames near London. The swans are owned by King Charles. They're tallied by the sovereign's swan maker, David Barber, and accompanying swan uppers who take to the waters in traditional Thames rowing skiffs.
And swan upping has been taking place since the 12th century, when it was a very, very important food. Of course, today, swan upping is all about conservation in education, and swans are no longer eaten. They are a protected species. The 6 boats will circle round the family of swans with signets, and they close the actual circle closer and closer together, and then they can lift the swans and young cygnets out by hand. They're tied with special swan ties, they're taken ashore, and then they're weighed, measured, and most importantly, checked for any injuries.
The 800-year-old tradition lasts 5 days. It covers a stretch of the River Thames from just outside London to Oxford, totaling 79 miles. Barber was hopeful they would find more young swans this year. Avian flu diminished the swan population in 2023 and 2024. On the first day of this year's swan upping, a total of 16 young swans were found. Coming up, President Trump will soon speak at an AI summit in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. There will be a record-setting $90 billion investment in the state for energy and innovation. Stay with us.
To celebrate our newest launch, Rev 7, I'm bringing you an amazing introductory offer, plus an exclusive overstock sale that you're not going to want to miss. Rev 7 is our premium energy drink that tastes great and gives you energy all day with no jitters and no crashes. That's because there's no sugar and no caffeine. I'm so sure you're going to love Rev 7 that for a limited time you can try our 3-pack absolutely free. Or check out our Percale bed sheets. I can't believe I'm even going to say this. Every color, every style, every size, only $29.88. So go to mypillow.com or call the number on your screen. Use your promo code to save 20% on our Rev 7 12-packs or try our introductory 3-pack absolutely free. And our Percale bed sheets, all sizes only $29.88, even the queens and kings. Inventory is extremely limited, so order now.
All throughout your home, appliances and systems just wait for the worst time to break down and leave you with expensive repairs. Unless you have a plan from Choice Home Warranty.
All home appliances and systems have a breakdown clock, and when it expires, it will cost hundreds and potentially even thousands of dollars to fix or replace. That's why every homeowner should have a plan with Choice Home Warranty, like I do. For a low monthly fee, a Choice Home Warranty plan will cover your heating, air conditioning, plumbing, appliances, and more. Don't let an unexpected repair wreck your budget. With Choice Home Warranty, that covered repair is fixed or replaced for you.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without them.
Avoid the ticking clock of home appliances and systems breaking down with a plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get your first month free. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage. That's $200 in total savings.
With a nationwide network of over 25,000 technicians, I don't worry about how my next breakdown will be handled. With a click of a button, my claim is filed, and Choice Home Warranty starts the clock. They do the legwork, hiring the right technician and handling the cost of covered repairs and replacements. And check this out. For a limited time, you can get 1 month of coverage free. Did you hear me? Free. You can't beat that deal with a sledgehammer. But hurry, this offer is ticking away. Once the clock hits 0, poof, it's gone.
Don't fear the breakdown clock. Get a plan from Choice Home Warranty and get round-the-clock money-saving protection you can count on. Call in the next 10 minutes and we'll give you $120 off your first year of coverage, plus get your first month free. This offer won't last long.
Get your home protected. Call now.
Don't wait for an appliance or system to break down. Call before that happens.